Hi, welcome to episode 433 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And we are just concluding our Tour de Fleece. That ended yesterday along with the Tour de France. And we did have some activity in the Team CKT group on Facebook and also on Ravelry in the Corner of Knit and Tea group. So hi, how are you? It is Monday, July 24th. It is crazy weather here. Well, not crazy, it's just summer weather. I woke up and it was so dark, I had to turn on all the lights in the house. It was storming outside, and it was in the 60s or 70s this morning while it was storming, and now I think it's going to get up to over 100 today. So it's just going to be crazy blazing hot, and now it's bright, and I am wearing my new linen top. I wanted to wear this to show you. I showed you when I finished it, but I made some modification, or I made one more modification. I talked a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, how I had finished the sleeves and then not liked the finished treatment, and then I redid it and I loved it, and I wore this for the first time kind of genuinely, not just trying it on, when I was in Chicago 2 weekends ago with my family, and I loved it, and so I wanted to wear it today to show you. So this top is the SD top. It is by Justina Lorkowska, and it's got this really cool lace pattern kind of up on the top of the sleeves, and then it's got a little bit of short row shaping, so you have a slightly drop neck in the front, and then otherwise it is pretty much just a kind of boxy tee. I knit it in my friend Christine, who is Treasure Goddess. I knit it in her bamboo linen, which is a fingering weight yarn. And this yarn just gets better the more I wash it. I washed it originally, I wore it to Chicago, I washed it and dried it again. Linen is one of those natural fibers that you can wash and dry in the dryer, and the more you wash it and wear it, the more soft and kind of drapey and lovely feeling it is. So it is perfect for a day like today, and I really like it, and I might be looking at, I don't know that I'll make another one exactly in this pattern, but I might look at a few other linen tops that are like this. I bought some more linen from my friend when she dyed it, and so I think she still has some on sale. That's Treasure Goddess Yarns, and she is on Etsy, and she also has her own website. So I just wanted to share that with you. And originally when I had done the kind of bind off on the sleeve area here, I had done it too tight, and so it was weird and bunchy and it didn't fit right. And of course I am not very used to kind of having a dropped shoulder or things that are kind of wide and boxy. That's not generally a style that I end up going for. So it was kind of a little bit of a learning curve to get comfortable with it, and also to make sure that I had left enough tension. So my arms are not like hugely open, but just a little bit, and I really enjoy it. This would also be great if you're going to the pool, or just laying out, or, you know, someplace where you really want to be warm and cool. I also think that you could wear it with something underneath in the winter. I don't know that I'll do that, but I think you could. So that was kind of a long-winded explanation of what I'm wearing. What I've been doing. There has been a lot of crafting, not all of which I've brought to show you. I did finish a bunch of things this week, so I'm very excited about that. It leaves me with almost nothing on my needles, but I have a bunch of projects to sort of dive into. The tour is over, and also the official team, the event on Ravelry, the prizes, we're getting ready to finish all of that, and I'll talk a little bit about that further on in the spinning section. But the Tour de France actually does sort of continue for the next week. They're doing the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift, which is the women's tour. They started this, there has been a women's tour in the past, but they started this again last year, and so I am watching this week, and so I do plan to spin some more this week, so I'm going to show you that. The big thing that I accomplished this weekend is I finished my quilt top. That was kind of the big thing that had been hanging over me. My husband is out of town right now. He went to ride in Ragbri, which is the big bike ride across Iowa, and so he is doing that for a week, and I am alone for a week, which meant I could lay my quilt out, all the blocks out on the living room floor, and just wander around them and stare at it and switch one here for there, and I did. And then over the weekend I sewed them all together in rows, and then I sewed the rows together, and the whole top is done. It looks really cool. I haven't taken any pictures yet. I might try and take a picture, but the light in there is not great. So the last things that I need to do are I need to sew a 1/8 inch seam all around the edge of the top, because the top is entirely patchwork. It's made of squares, which are made of smaller bits of fabric, and the suggestion is that before you send it off to a machine quilter, you do sort of one line of stitching around the outer edge, just a very short seam, just to kind of keep it all together, so that when they put it on the quilting machine and they sort of stretch it out, that it's all kind of held together in one shape. So I need to do that, and then the last thing that I need to do is I need to piece my backing together. So my quilt, I haven't taken measurements, but I do know that it's 7 blocks by 9 blocks. And the blocks were, oh, I don't know what I finished up at. My math is really terrible. So I'm going to say it's about 60 by 75-ish. So it's like a big lap quilt. It's not quite a bed quilt. And so I need to piece together multiple bits of fabric for the backing. I don't remember how much I bought. I bought whatever it told me to buy. And I need to basically cut that piece of fabric in half. I want to say it might be 5 yards. And so I need to cut that in half, and then I need to seam them together at the middle so that I have a piece that's wide enough and tall enough to be my backing. So that is kind of what I'm doing. And then I'm going to send that off to be machine quilted, and it's probably going to take a while. My guess is a couple months, because I am going to send it off to be machine quilted at Missouri Star, and I'm an employee, and so I do get a nice discount. But the other sort of the flip side of that is that they work our quilts in when they have time, and we're coming up on holiday quilt season, and everybody's making quilts for the fall and for Christmas. And so the way it works is I get kind of a reduction in price, but I also get put on the frame when there's time for it, so when they don't have anything else running through, so they just kind of fit ours in whenever. So it will probably be a couple months, 6 to 8 weeks would be my guess, maybe more, and it's fine. I will show you that quilt when it is finished. I'll bring it and show you, although I'll have to like stand up and do a whole thing. And so yeah. So we're 7 minutes in. Let's talk about actual knitting and spinning. I know that's not the crafting content you come for. So today I decided to drink iced tea. I made a big pitcher of iced tea, and what I made is Republic of Tea's Strawberry Basil. These are large green tea pouches. They make 1 quart size pitchers, so I made a quart of iced tea. You can get these at Republic of Tea. They have several different flavors. I don't remember all of them. I've gotten a couple of them. I particularly made this one because I think later I might spike it with a little bit of rum, but right now I'm just drinking it plain because I still have a little bit more work to do. So I am drinking that in my Llama Love cup, and I just added just a little bit of sugar, and I think this is going to be great for a hot day. And it's supposed to get well up over 100 most days this week, so I decided having a big pitcher of iced tea in the fridge was not a bad thing. So let's talk about the knitting. I have 2 finished objects to share with you. The first are the socks that I was working on last week. These are from Zen Yarn Garden, and they are their In Sync balls, which are balls of yarn that are dyed. They're dyed as double-stranded, so that basically you can have 2 identical socks. And last week I talked to you about the fact that these socks are not 100% identical. You'll recognize that if you are kind of eagle-eyed, but they look very much alike. And so partway through the week, I sort of had a crisis of conscience, and I emailed Roxanne at Zen Yarn Garden and said, okay, the socks are not coming out quite right. First of all, they're pooling rather than variegated, and they don't look 100% the same. What do you think I should do? And she said, I think you should keep knitting and finish them. So I did. So these are a Knit Picks pattern. It's called, it's 2 at a time toe-up socks on magic loop. And I can't remember precisely if that's what the pattern is called. It will be linked in the show notes. I have linked to the pattern on the Knit Picks website. It is also free on Ravelry, and it is, as described, basically for knitting 2 at a time toe-up socks on magic loop. And the thing that I find most interesting about this pattern is the heel flap. It is not one that I have knit before, and it is a slip stitch heel flap that actually starts underneath the foot, and then you carry on and and you do your heel turn, and then you carry it up the back of the foot as you decrease the gusset. So it's, and you're actually picking up your gusset stitches along the edges of the heel flap on the bottom of the foot. I have never seen it done this way before. It kind of makes sense to me because it gives you a little bit of a cushier heel, and then it also gives you some double strength under the back of the heel in addition to right at the back of the heel. Otherwise, it's pretty much a standard sock pattern. You do a figure 8 cast on or Judy's Magic cast on at the toe. You increase sort of standardly. It tells you how long to, I should say this pattern is kind of a recipe. I've talked about that a little bit at other times. So you knit the toe until the toe fits your foot well, or whoever's foot it's going to be, and then you knit the foot, and it tells you approximately how long to stop before the heel, based on how long you want your whole foot, and then it tells you to do your heel flap for a certain amount of time. It gives you kind of instructions on how to do the heel turn, how to pick up your gussets, and then how to kind of decrease your gussets, and then you're just knitting all the way up. And I did probably about 1.5 inches or so in ribbing at the top. It's a little hard to tell because the pooling makes it really hard to see. As you can see, you get a little bit of both on here. These are 60 stitch socks, so I can't guarantee whether it would pool or be variegated for any other size than this. I do know at 60 it pooled nicely and you got all these stripes, but you also have small sections where you're, for instance, when you're working when you're decreasing your gussets, you are changing stitch counts, so you're back into kind of a variegated. So you're going to end up with socks that either look like this with the pooling almost like zebra stripes, or you're going to end up with something that looks like this where you've got little pinstripes of all the different color. So that is my finished pair of InSync socks, and these will be available shortly. We're also going to be doing a tutorial Tuesday on these shortly, so we can talk about it. Again, I picked the toe up pattern because I wanted to be able to use up as much yarn as possible, and particularly in the gradient pair that I made a few weeks ago, I used the same pattern. I could use all of or as much of the gradient as I wanted to. These are a little bit bigger than my feet. My sock blockers are small, and I tried to knit these as a medium. I knit about a 9 to 10 inch foot, 9.5 to 10 inch foot, and again, like I said, 60 stitches on US zeros. I am a little bit of a loose knitter, so that is why I went down to zeros. So those are done, and I'm going to pull those off the sock blockers because I actually have another pair of socks. After just barely finishing the green socks that had been on my needles for a while, I absolutely tore through the blue socks in my rainbow socks for this year. So I knit these using a different toe-up sock recipe, again, so that I could use up all the yarn. This year I am knitting a rainbow of socks for Knit the Rainbow, which is a charity that supports houseless LGBTQIA folks, particularly in the New York area, but also in a couple other areas around the country. I have been knitting up DK or worsted weight socks in the colors of the rainbow this year. I have been using a variety of patterns, for the most part because since I'm doing DK or worsted weight, I have between 200 and 250 yards to knit a pair of socks. I've been trying to do them in small, medium, and large so that I have a few different pairs in different sizes, and so that I can use up all the yarn. So again, I wound these into 2 cakes. Basically, I took my yarn and wound it into 2 cakes, divided them so I had them equally, and then I went ahead and knit socks. For this pattern, I used David Schultz's toe up sock recipe or sock cookbook. That unfortunately is only available on Ravelry. It is a free pattern. It's a pattern that has you sort of knit your toe for gauge, and then it will tell you roughly how to knit the rest of your socks. It is a typical gusset and heel flap, so you increase stitches for the gusset on the bottom of the foot, and then you turn your heel, and then you decrease your gusset stitches in a slip stitch heel flap, and then go up to rib. And I didn't mean to do ribbing quite so long on here, but I was sort of looking at how much of my ball of yarn was left and sort of gauged, okay, I should start now, and then it went on longer than I thought, so I did the second one to match, because of course if you're going to give a pair of socks, they should match. So those are done. The yarn that I used is Hazel Knits. It was their Cadence, which is 100% superwash merino, and the colorway was Splish Splash, which is this bright, rich blue. So now it is time for me to do purple socks in my rainbow, and I don't actually have purple yarn. So one of the things that's on my list, yeah, I know I really don't need to shop for any yarn, but believe it or not, I don't have purple yarn. Wait a minute, I do. I dyed some yarn purple a while ago. Maybe I'll use that. Although I don't know that that's superwash. I'm going to do some investigating, and if I have some purple yarn, I'm going to start on some purple socks. And if I don't, I'm going to buy some purple yarn and start on some purple socks. So that is 2 pairs of socks done, and I'm really pleased with finishing those this month. So the last bit of knitting that I have to show you is my sweater. And this one sort of gets short shrift all the time because I kind of put it aside if I have other things to do. But I have been working this month and maybe about a month now, maybe a little bit more, on a weekender that is a pattern by Andrea Mowry, who is Drea Renee Knits, and it is kind of a relaxed fit pullover. It comes in both worsted and fingering weight patterns. It's from the bottom up. It's kind of a reverse stockinette with a slip stitch detail, and I finished my first sleeve. So I have showed you the body. I finished the body a few weeks ago, and then what I did is with the last cake of yarn, I divided it in half, and I started working on the sleeves, and I have finished my first sleeve, and look at this. Look at how it matches the body. Like, I didn't plan this. This is no yarn management, but look at how close it is to the body and how it just all goes together. I'm so absolutely unbelievably thrilled with that. It kind of came together like magic. So I finished, I just knit kind of a standard sleeve. I made a bunch of decreases, and then I did a 1x1 ribbed cuff to go with the other 1x1 ribbing. I'll be honest, I don't know that I followed Andrea Mowry's pattern. I should say that when I knit the body of this, I actually made the armhole, it made it longer than was listed in the pattern. I had heard that the sleeves in the pattern were a little bit tight, and while they are a slimmer fit sleeve compared to the rest of the sweater, and they also, it's a drop shoulder, so it actually lands, you know, closer to here, so you don't need quite as many stitches at the top as you might if you were trying to go around your whole shoulder joint here. I picked up more stitches than were called for. Well, okay, so I knit, I added a little bit of length before I started the top short row shaping here. So I just generally have a slightly bigger armhole than the pattern calls for. That was, like I said, a modification that I made sort of based on reading other folks' reviews. And then I just basically knit, I knit my sleeve, honestly. I tried to decrease every 8 rounds. Sometimes I did that, sometimes I forgot, and I think I started with between 68 and 66 maybe stitches up at the top, and in the last round before I started my ribbing, I decreased down to 40 stitches. So most of the stitches I pulled away. I think I pulled maybe 6 out when I started the ribbing, just so that I have a nice fitted cuff. So I have picked up for the second sleeve and done maybe like 2 rounds. I have no idea if this side is going to match. I did have more than enough for the sleeves, which means I could have put a little more on the body, but we're just not going to talk about it because that's neither here nor there. Basically what I did is I had a final skein of handspun, and I wound it up, and then I divided it in half using my scale and used 1/2 for one sleeve. This is what was left after that sleeve, so I actually went ahead and started this on the second side for the sleeve, and then I have a whole nother ball of handspun here, and so I will have a little bit left over. I'm not going to have enough left over to do like a hat or anything complicated. I might have been able to get 1 more inch on the body. I still am sort of okay with my judgment because I had to make a call, and you know, it is the problem with bottom-up sweaters is that you sort of have to make a decision about whether you're going to have enough yarn. I'm thrilled that I have enough for long sleeves though, and honestly this will block out, so it's not going to be super short. It's not going to be cropped or anything. It's just I would have even made it closer to tunic length if I could have. So that is what I'm working on here, and actually my goal is to maybe finish up this sweater sleeve this weekend, because I feel like it's time for this sweater to be done. Because what else would I want in July when it's 100+ heat index out but a full wool sweater? No, I cannot say how much I have been enjoying this knit. The pattern is great. It's well written. I did make a few modifications, as I said. Honestly, the 2 things about this knit that have been so wonderful for me are, number one, it is in my handspun. I don't use my handspun enough. I make a lot of handspun, I sell a lot of handspun, but every so often it is just delightful to knit with my own handspun, and this has so many wonderful colors in it that I love, and it has just come together beautifully. I just can't say enough good things about this. The second is that the pattern is great, and part of what I love about the pattern is that it's really simple. Sometimes I just need a good stockinette or reverse stockinette knit, and it is really soothing to just knit something simple and let your yarn do all the work, which in handspun, if you end up with too much of a pattern, it really sort of takes away from either the pattern gets obscured, so it feels like it's not worth it to do the pattern, or the pattern fights with the handspun, and so you just don't see either very well. So I am just really absolutely 110% thrilled with this knit, and I think I've decided that I want to cast on another handspun sweater. So I can't decide whether it's going to be like a short sleeve or a long sleeve or a fingering weight or what. This was definitely worsted to light bulky weight. And I had spun this up for something different, which is why I had spun it up that thick, but I think it's going to be a great winter sweater. But I stay tuned for more handspun projects on the horizon, because I really do want to. So that would make a great segue to spinning, except that I'm going to show you one more thing on knitting. So basically I have a sleeve to knit. I don't have anything left on the needles, or anything left that I'm currently working on. I will be getting another sample shortly, but I also need to start another project. And the project that I'm going to start is going to be a sweater for my nephew, Miles. I already knit Roxy's sweater. If you've been watching for a while, I knit the Little Nydia cardigan, and I finished that, I think, very early June. And then I dove into a sweater for myself, and I really need to go back and knit my nephew a sweater now. These are birthday sweaters that I knit for my niece and nephew for their birthdays in the fall. Their birthdays aren't until October, but I would really like to knock out Miles' sweater so it's just done and ready to go. And then as soon as the fall bug hits, which usually hits me at the end of August, beginning of September, I can start on something for myself. So I just wanted to show you the yarn that I'm going to use for Miles' sweater. As it turns out, Miles is not as into red as he once was. His favorite color right now is pink, but I didn't know that. And I went ahead and bought red because the last time I talked to him, he said his favorite, actually, it's very funny, I think his favorite colors are tequila sunrise, because he always tells me it is pink, red, orange, yellow. No green. No green or blue. So I picked red. This is Malabrigo Rios, and it's in the Cereza, which means cherry. And so it is a deep dark cherry red, and I have picked out a pullover designed by Isolde Teague. I think it's called Hearthstone. And it's got a really nice kind of cable work around the neck, and then at the can't remember whether it's cable or rib at the neck, but then it's also got like cable work here just at the raglans. At the raglan lines on the sweater. So it's going to be kind of a simple pullover, and I don't know if I'm even going to swatch, because I need to look at what gauge it calls for and what needle size, because I have just knit several sweaters for the kids in Malabrigo Rios, so I honestly may be able to start without doing a swatch. I will do a swatch if I'm not comfortable with the gauge, but if it's the same gauge as the sweater I just knit, then I'm good. The sweater that I just knit for Roxy, I can probably use the same needles and be just fine. So that is kind of what's going to be next on my needles. I don't know that I will cast it on this week, because I still want to spin this week and I have a chicken, but it is what is coming up, so it will be what I'm showing you in the next few podcasts. So, yep. So let's segue into spinning. This Sunday, we finished off the Tour de Fleece. The Tour de France, the bike race, concluded this Sunday, and there were no surprises in who the winners were. This year's tour was a little bit boring in the sense that in week one, we basically knew who the two winners were likely to be, and who was wearing most of the jerseys. So it wasn't like a super exciting tour in the sense that like things were constantly changing and it was like a super dynamic race. The winner this year is the same who won last year. And then the second winner is the one who won a couple years previous. So, you know, there wasn't a lot of guesswork about it. It was fun to watch. I did take an involuntary break in the middle because we went to Chicago ago. And so I finished watching that yesterday and I finished spinning. So I did a few totals and I didn't bring a ton to show you. I just brought the last skein that I finished. But so this year I spun, if we're ready. So here's the deal of what I spun. I think I did the entire, did I do the, I did. Okay, so I spun chicken yarn throughout the tour. I spun 4 bobbins of white and 6 bobbins of black, and total that was 32 ounces. So that is 2 pounds. And I got approximately 850 yards. Now that is super bulky, thick and thin, spinning for chickens. So that is single ply, and that's fine. I will use that. I may need to spin up some more, but I will use that and start working on a chicken probably this week, using the black and the white. On the braids that I spun, so moving to like the finished spins that I've shown you of Hello Yarn and Kim Dye's Yarn and a variety of other dyed braids. I spun 5 braids for a total of 19.8 ounces, so almost 20 ounces, and 1,796 yards. So then the last thing that I did, and I think I showed you on one of the podcasts in between, is I had a whole bunch of extra little plying balls. Just little bits and pieces and leftovers, bobs from skeins that I plied, and I plied a bunch of those together, and that was an additional 50 grams, 1.7 ounces, and about 100 yards. So I did the math, and all together, what I ended up for this Tour de Fleece is 52.5 ounces, which is almost 3 pounds, not quite, but close to 3 pounds. No, let me think about that. 52, 16 times 3 is 48. So it's over 3 pounds, 3 pounds, 4 ounces, and a total of about, and I did have to estimate on some of the yardage because it's not all washed and thwacked yet, 2,720 yards. So I think that was a wonderful tour, and I'm not done yet. So, that was just kind of a little bit of math. I know it's not super exciting, but I like kind of putting together the stats of what I do. The final spin that I completed this week, and I can't remember, I think I showed you the braid last time. I just plied this last night, so it has not been washed and thwacked and measured, so I kind of had to guess a little bit at the yardage on it. But this is a skein from Kim Dye's Yarn, and it was called Midnight Garden, and it was on Tarhi. And this one was kind of, it reminded me of Monet's Water Lilies. I'm almost positive I said that last time. It had like yellows and greens and blues and purples. And what I did on this skein was I spun it a little bit differently than I usually spin my skeins. I decided, based on my experience with the previous skein, that I didn't want this to get muddy. I didn't want to do barber pulling colors. I didn't want it to end up kind of a muted reed, entirely gray or green. And so what I did with this is I actually took the braid and I split it in half lengthwise. So normally what I do is I lay out my whole braid and I fold it in half so that the ends are touching, and then I break it in the middle, and so I break it horizontally, and then I spin up each horizontal half a little bit differently. Usually I do strips on one and straight through on the other, and then I ply them together and I end up with a fractal spin. What I did this time is I laid the whole braid out, and then I broke that braid in half lengthwise. So I had 2 pieces that were the full length of the braid. And each of those I spun straight through so that I would keep my straight color runs. So it was like yellow, fading into green, fading into blue, fading into purple, and then back out to blue, and back out to green, and back out to yellow. And it repeated that process a few times. And so I spun those both straight through so that theoretically I could 2-ply and have all of those color runs together. For the most part, that is what happened. I didn't spin them exactly equally. I had more on one bobbin than on the other. So probably about halfway through, the colors are matched perfectly. And then as you start to get further and further into the braid, the colors aren't matched as well. So you can see that I have sections where I definitely have like 2 strands of green and 2 strands of purple. You can see where I have like a dark purple and a lighter purple, or you can see where I have yellow and green. So there are going to be different parts in this skein, and overall I think it's going to knit up kind of subtly striping, and so you're kind of going to maintain those gorgeous colors that were in the original. I think this is going to be about 350 yards, kind of a sport DK weight. It was let me think about it. It was tarhy, I did say that. And so it should puff up a little bit, but I haven't washed it yet because I just wound it off the bobbin today. So I am going to wash this in the next couple days, and I will tell you I am going to do an update in my Etsy shop Friday at noon. And I will post this on Instagram as well. Friday at noon, I'm going to put all of my Tour de Fleece spins in there. So that's 5 skeins of yarn, about 1,700 yards, and those will be in my shop if you are interested in purchasing. Normally, I don't do announced updates because I put 1 skein at a time. This time, I kind of wanted to just keep all my skeins together and photograph them together. And so I'm going to wash this one, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to put them all up at once. So Friday, which is July 28th. Yes, Friday is July 28th at noon Central Time. They are going to go up in my Etsy shop. And if you are interested, there will be 5 skeins available for purchase. So that is what I'm doing with those. And then the final piece is, I told you that Tour de France actually sort of goes on this week with Tour de France Femme avec Zwift, and that's because Zwift is a sponsor of it, and Femme is women, so the women's Tour de France, and I decided that I wanted to do one more big spin this week, and so I actually recently bought 2 braids of a colorway from Kim Dye's Yarn. And she dyed it sort of with the new Barbie movie. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm thinking about going this evening, and I'll probably go to a showing masked. My husband has 0 interest in this, so I definitely picked a good time to go. And everyone has been doing Barbie colors and Barbie pink. I even went for the Barbie pink nails this week, but I decided that I really wanted a couple braids of Kim Dye's Yarn. This is a BFL silk, and this is called Indie Dyer Barbie. And so it's mostly pink, but it's also got bits and bobs of the rainbow. And I actually bought 2 bumps of this. So each bump is about 4 ounces. And I decided that I'm going to spin each bump in strips. I'm tearing them all into strips so that I have fun barber pole, but the overall effect is pink. And I'm going to spin each of these separately on a bobbin, so 4 ounces on each bobbin. And then I'm going to apply them together for a big multi-skein. It'll be 8 ounces. And I'm going to see what kind of yardage I get. And then I'm going to make some decisions about what I want to make with it. I don't know if this will be my next sweater cast on. That depends on how much yardage. I have a couple ideas of something that I could do with this, pairing it with another fiber. I also could potentially pair it with a commercial yarn once I see how it comes out. Basically, I am just spinning thin, and I'm enjoying the spin and loving the colors, and I'm going to wait and see what I end up with, and then I will choose something to do with it from there. So this one will likely stay mine. It will not be a shop braid, but I'm really excited about this. So that is what I'm working on right now. And I did order a few more braids throughout the tour, so I have lots of fun spinning coming up. I will probably slow down a little bit on my spinning and try and ramp up a little bit more on my knitting. As I said, I have a black and white chicken to knit with all that yarn I just spun. I do know that I have another sample coming in. I would like to do a sweater for Miles. And then after that, I will figure out what's next for me. Oh, and I would like to make some purple socks before the end of September because I'd like to be able to mail my rainbows of socks off as a donation. So that was a lot. I think I got through it. I know it's been 32 minutes. Thank you for hanging in there with me. I hope that you have had a wonderful week, that your weather is not as hot and gross as mine is because I am not enjoying it that much, to be perfectly honest. May you have tea or coffee or iced tea or whatever beverage you wish in plenty. And until I see you next time, I will say happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.